Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. This is a really special one. This is, of course, you know, I think that about all of them. So, if you're as optimistic as me, you'll agree with that, but I keep getting blowback. This is a really special one, in my opinion. Williams Grand Prix pinball machine. This was one of their last year's worth or so of EM pinball machines before everything went solid state, and because of that it's a fairly complicated game. I've heard some people say that this is the most complex EM ever released, so we're going to see if that's crap or if that's the truth, right? So I don't even see a copyright date on it, but I think it was 75 or 76. I'll look that up here in a little bit. But the main thing is the thing's got a bunch going on, so we're going to look through it and see if it really is any more complex than the other ones, and we're going to fix it. So it's a 4-player, and this was when they had all the extra reels. So there's 5 score reels and a dummy reel, or I guess that's a dummy reel. Well, look, the last one doesn't have anything on it, so maybe it originally had a sticker on it that's fallen off or something. We'll look into that and see what that is. Or maybe I think I see a 0 that's kind of faded on it. But it looks like 5 of the reels are going to actually move. We've got this old College Queens over here that was still back when there were 4 reels. But they've got 5 moving reels and a fake reel. And it's a 4-player, which means it's got a lot of stuff in the back box just to make all 4 players work. But then here on the playfield, the biggest thing is it has 2 bonus ladders. One on each side, obviously, which is pretty unique. So to make the bonus work, apparently there are 2 sets of everything. So that you've got the kick out hole over there that says scores left bonus, and then you've got the kick out hole over here that says scores the right bonus. If you look, you also have a couple drop targets there, and then there's a couple more up at the top that are dropped right now. So A, B, C, and D drop targets, 2 bonus ladders, 2 kick outs, 2 spinners, 1 on each side, which is awesome. 2 pop bumpers, and even a kick out hole up at the top. And then of course down at the bottom you got 2 slingshots. So that's a pretty packed playfield for a EM. You can see everything's laid out. I did that on another video too. What do they call it? Symmetrically. Everything's laid out symmetrically. I had another video I did a while back where I couldn't think of that word to save my life. So it's not a super creative playfield or anything, but they did pack in about as much as they possibly can on an EM playfield. It also has this strange little feature over here. There is a rollover over here behind this gate. That gate is always shut, and the reason for it is so that the ball can go this way, but the ball cannot go that way. So the explanation that I have heard for this switch is that the sole purpose of the switch is so that if when you shoot the ball it goes through this gate and then hits this switch first, it's a way for the game to know that that gate is stuck open, which can happen from time to time. So if that gate's stuck open and this switch is hit first, it tilts the game. And supposedly they went through all that trouble to add this one little switch just to do that, just to keep that gate from being open. I guess because you'd get a bunch of points. Because if it's open, I don't know, we'll see here whenever we play it, but if it's open, that causes problems, basically on scoring, where you can get a really high score. So they went through all that trouble, spent extra money, put an extra switch in the game, designed it just to keep that from happening. I don't completely understand it. I don't know why they made such a big deal out of it, but maybe it will become more apparent when we play it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the glass off, and then we're going to look inside of it and see how full this sucker is, and see what kind of trash is in there too, because the rats that look like have been at it a little bit. And then we'll look in the back box, and we'll get to repairing it. So upon lifting the playfield, I have immediately convinced myself that yes, this is the most complex EM pinball machine I've ever seen. Now there are bingo pinball machines, you know, the old 25-hole machines. Some of them are much more complex than even this, but Most of that stuff is usually in the back box. All of this is, I'm sure there's a lot in the back box too, but a lot of this is under the playfield. One of these days, if you haven't seen one of those, one of these days I'll film a video of one of them. They got all kinds of stuff going on. But let's see what we got. So we've got all of our adjustment plugs and stuff here in the front. We've got a 3-chime unit. The transformer they have mounted right behind it. Usually they're back there, but they don't have the room. So they've mounted it up here in the front. Just lifting this thing up on the cart, it's a lot heavier than most pinball machines. Score motor looks about normal. And then you've got a ton of relays. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see 9. I see a bunch of extra coils laying back there. And then on this side you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, another 8 relays. So just in the bottom you have 17 relays. You have a coin unit, and then this may be like the ball count unit or something, I don't know, we'll look at it. So you got 2 stepper units, right? And then check out the playfield. You have 6 relays there, but if you look above them on the playfield itself, there are another 4 relays, and then there's a big capacitor, right? And then over here there is what's labeled as the right bonus unit, but it's not even a normal bonus unit. It's some kind of super bonus unit with a 3rd coil on it for some reason. And then you've got the drop targets. So these EM Williams drop targets had, you know, they were this big clunky thing with a couple switches on it and its own coil. On a lot of more modern machines, drop targets don't all have their own coil. They just fell. But on some of the EMs they did. So they're these big old fat cool drop targets. So you've got 4 of those on the playfield, which takes up a lot of real estate. You got your 2 pop bumpers, your coil for your kick out hole. You've got all of these light bulbs for the bonus runs, right? You've got these 2 stepper units, right spinner unit, left spinner unit. So I guess as it spins, it pushes this down 1 click, which turns this little thing at the top, which must have something to do with the lights or something, I don't know. You've got more runs of lights, your right kick out hole, your left kick out hole, the 500 relay, the 2 kickers, more light bulbs, the rollover lanes, which are each double stacked switches instead of just a single switch. Of course your 2 flippers, and this must be the left relay, the left bonus unit. That's a lot of stuff, people. And since this was one of the newer Williams ones, it has the DC flippers, so it's got that little bridge rectifier there. But just picking up the playfield is tougher than on most games. This thing is heavy. So when we work on it, I'm going to pull that playfield out of the machine, and that'll be a chore. All right. Oh, the cabinet is stenciled. And still looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's good enough that we'll probably leave it, clean it up a little bit. We'll repaint the frame because that always gets banged up the most. So let's look in the back here. I'll see if I can lighten this part of the video up so you can see it a little better. But we have 20 score reels for the 4 players. Let me see if I can move it forward a little bit without knocking it off its cart or knocking the playfield down. We're rolling, people, we're rolling. So you've got 20 freaking score reels. You've got the credit unit. Is that what they called it on a Williams? I guess that's the credit unit. You've got another big stepper unit. You've got another small stepper unit that's probably the match unit. And then, just for the hell of it, there's another 7 relays. So, yeah, it's the most complex EM I've ever seen. There's so much going on in this. Now, if you've ever messed with a bingo EM, there's underneath the playfield, there's not much. There's like a board for the balls to roll down, and it's the kind with 25 holes. When you open the back door, there's all this stuff. There's stuff mounted on the back of the door. There's this huge drum with multiple stepper units all intertwined together that helps it make a like a pseudo random selection. So I'm not going to say this is more complex than a bingo machine, especially the later ones, but this is the most complex EM pinball machine that I've ever seen. But you know what? You know how you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the playfield out of it, if I can pick it up. I'll bet I can. I'm going to pick the playfield up, which will be one hell of a feat of strength. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it because I won't film that, but we'll get the playfield out of it, and then we'll start cleaning through all of the relays underneath it, and all of the relays underneath the playfield, you know, after we put it back in, and the stepper units and all that. So we'll see what all I run into, and I'll film some of that for you. So after looking at it, I got the playfield out. And after looking at what was going on in the back there, I found another relay that was hiding from me. So this one was hiding from me. I didn't count it at first. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 relays on this side. And this one's one of the latch lock relays where there's 2 coils. So I figured, you know, there was a whole bunch of trash in the back corner. So I figured, man, I'm just going to take that board out. I usually don't take the board all the way out. But I could tell there were some issues going on here, which I'll show you. So there was a bunch of trash in the back, and there was like 3 extra coils for one, which who even knows what they go to. But just a bunch of, you know, little pieces of nut and stuff from squirrels or whatever, rats or whatever was in it. And you unplug a few things and you can take the entire board out. So I popped it up on the deck here, and I was able to clean up the cabinet pretty good underneath it. So after doing that, I noticed, look at this. So there's a bunch of wires just kind of not connected or whatever. So I need to look into that on the coin unit. Now, the reason for that may be that there are no coin mechs left. The reason there's no coin mechs left is because sometimes operators would sell games, and they were afraid that if they sold the game, that Bob down the road would buy it from them, and then he'd go talk to the pool alley, the bowling alley or the pool hall, and say, hey, I got a pinball machine, and he would start operating and be their competition. So the operators are very paranoid, a lot of them back in the day. So one of the ways they combated that was they would remove all of the coin mechs and all of the stuff on the coin door and just make it where the thing started with the start button and you didn't ever need coin mechs. And they didn't do it to put it on free play for home use, because to put it on free play for home use, you bend one switch and that's all you have to do. Or you just put one little jumper on it and you're done. No, they did it because they were afraid that somebody was going to operate it and be their competition. So the coin mechs are missing and all that stuff, but I don't really need that stuff. We can do without that. So these wires that have been disconnected and messed around on the coin unit may have something to do with that. I don't know. We'll figure it out on the schematics. Bigger deal is this transformer over here. So, you know, I was mentioning that they put a transformer in, and they put it up here in the front because they don't have room in the back. That's true, that's where it mounts, but this isn't the right transformer. Somebody swapped it. Now, I don't know if it's the right voltages or not, so we're going to have to figure that out too on the schematics. I don't know what it's out of, but they've got the power running in the bottom, or I guess it's the power. I don't know. I hope they did it right. They've got lines running in the bottom. Looks like going to the center tap and 117 volts AC, and then coming out of the top, it looks like this is the center tap, and then this is 6 volts, and this is 24 volts. And this over here says high tap, and it says 50 Hertz Williams Electronics Incorporated. So it is a Williams transformer, but it's too big for the mounting holes. So there's only one bolt on it, and then on the back there are other connections that aren't connected. So I don't know. So we're going to have to look that up and see if maybe we can figure out what this came out of, and if if all it needs from the transformer is 2 voltages, 6 volts and 24 volts, we're probably fine if it's wired up right. So we're going to look in the schematics and figure that out. My guess is it's probably working fine with that, because the operator probably did that 30 years ago, and I'm just now seeing it whenever it gets to me. So we got to look that up, and then I'm going to, while we got the board out, I'm going to clean through everything, get everything adjusted how it goes, and then put it back down in there, and then we know that all of that stuff is how it should be, or hopefully is how it should be. It'll be a lot easier to get to the switches and everything with it out of the cabinet. But really, taking it out was just like a 2-minute job. They made it so that so this is the front of the machine. The chime unit plugs in here, the knocker plugs in there, so you unplug both of those. The coin door plugs in here, you unplug that. There was another plug that plugged in here, you unplug that. And then on the back, I had already unplugged the playfield. And you had these Jones plugs that go up into the head that were already unplugged. So I just pulled a little slack in the power cord because it goes out through the neck. It's kind of stuck, and that gave me enough slack to lift it right out. I had to take the chime unit off because it hangs over the front of it right here. So there's 3 screws you loosen and that comes right off. So not that big of a deal. Now I have seen people that want to go all the way. You know, not everybody wants to go all the way or has the time to go all the way, but I've seen some people that want to go all the way, and what they'll do is they'll take pictures of this, and then they'll take all of these screws off that hold everything on this piece of plywood. And then once you do that, you take all of these pieces of paper off that tell you where all the relays are. And you can reprint those, and you can put a new piece of plywood, or you can paint it a certain color or whatever, and then you clean each little part and put it back on the board. Some people would even go so far as to take all of this stuff and put it in their dishwasher, which works fine. If you do that, just let it dry. As long as you don't turn it on while it's wet, everything's cool. But we're not going to do that. We're going to clean it up a little bit. We're going to get it where it works. We're going to put it back in the machine. We are going to secure this transformer down a little bit better, though, so it doesn't short things out. But let's look in the manual or the schematics and see if that's the right transformer or the right voltages. We know it's not the right transformer. Here are the schematics, and it should be transformer 15A- I think that's 6771. But the most important thing is the power goes in this side of the transformer. It transforms it. And then there are 3 lines that, oh, wait a minute, I might have another one over here. You get a 6 volt coming off this side, which is what we got, and then you get 24 volts between these. Let's see what this one over here is, though. That might screw me up. Oh, okay. Low line voltage tap, so that's the high tap. You saw that was on it too. So we're good. We are good, people, and if you see the 6 volt uses the same center tap as the 24 volt. That's exactly how it's set up. And you saw that the transformer did say Williams on it, so I don't know what that's out of, but maybe we can search and figure it out. All right, I have looked it all up, people, and I think I understand it. I'm sure, I am positive that my faithful watchers will tell me how full of crap I am if I get this wrong. But the motor, the score motor, is important, and it is a 60 cycle score motor, which is like the US, we're in the United States, this is like the US frequency, hertz. Okay, this transformer originally would have been a 60 hertz transformer. This is a 50 hertz transformer, but as I understand it, now, I ain't no expert, but as I understand it, and I'm sure people will feel differently, a 50 hertz transformer and a 60 hertz transformer are actually the same, because a 50 hertz, whatever you transform the voltages, it doesn't transform the frequency, the cycles. So since we're in the United States, we're getting 60 hertz out of the wall. It will continue to be 60 hertz after it goes through the transformer. But if you were to put 50 hertz through it to transform the power properly, it needs a bigger transformer, is what I understand. So this is a slightly bigger one. Also, it has different taps on it. So Again, how I understand it is you always want 6 volts out and 24 volts out, and so your center tap's always going to be here, but you can set it on 105 volts, 117 volts, which is what we got it on, 130 volt. You can move that one wire over here to 130 or 160 or 205 or 225 or 240 to match whatever's coming out of your wall. So this is kind of like a generic transformer that can fit any machine anywhere in the world. So it could be that the operator had a transformer go bad, which is rare. I mean, that hardly ever happens. And he ordered this from Williams because this appears to be the transformer that would be used on a export Grand Prix, because in other countries they have 50 hertz coming out of their wall, and they also have different voltages coming out of their wall. But as I understand it, if this was an import game, this would have a 50 cycle motor on it. Now, if this was a 50 cycle motor and you plug it into the wall and send 60 cycles through it, it'll still work, it'll just run too fast. And because of that, it will, sometimes the score wheels, you know, like if you score 500 points, it won't have time to count all 5, it'll just count 4, and it'll screw up things like that. But as I understand it, if you have a 60 cycle motor, you're good, and the transformer frequency isn't really as important. Now, again, I'm positive people will correct me below if I'm wrong about that. My point being, though, I think we're good with that one. We can secure it down a little bit better and get about cleaning the rest of the switches. So I'll secure that down a little bit, and then I'm going to start cleaning through all of these relays, cleaning the switches up, cleaning up the switches on the score motor, and then we'll work on the stepper units, clean up these fuses, and get this thing installed back in the cabinet. This is the transformer that should be in it, the exact one, and you can see it's smaller and it only has these 2 hookups. The back doesn't have them. And again, from what I understand, if it's a 50 hertz, to use 50 hertz out of a wall, it runs hotter, so they make a larger transformer to handle that. If you run 60 hertz through a 50 hertz transformer, it'll just run cooler. It won't actually it doesn't transform the frequency. So I believe I got that right. So if you remember on that coin unit, there were a couple wires screwed up on the top of it, and I was thinking, what the hell? And maybe this is the operator doing something to do with, you know, putting it on free play, right? So I wrote down all of the wires that are connected to it. Some of them look like they'd been soldered, and you know, things were a little different. So I wrote down whenever the thing spins, what that coin unit can step 4 positions. So it starts at 1, then it can do 2, 3, 4, and that's it. They can go back to 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's used to, you know, you can put 4 credits in the game to play 4 different players. So I wrote down the position that they were at and the color of the wire. And so I got down here to the gray and white wire was disconnected that appeared to connect to position 1, and then the yellow and green wire was disconnected that appeared to connect to position 2. And so I went through, I wrote every one of them down, and then I went through the schematics and I found all the places in the schematics where the coin unit is drawn in. So up here on the schematics it says coin unit. Now all over the schematics there are different areas where it says coin unit, but they're just showing you this one little connection. So they say that there is a brown wire, and then you see how there's an arrow and it points at the one line here, the one dot. That's the one contact on the spider, or on the Bakelite board, whatever you call it. And what they're telling you is that as that turns, it will connect to a different one. So right now the brown, at the home position, the brown wire is connected to the gray wire. Whenever it turns to the second position, the brown wire will then be connected to the yellow and green wire. At the third position, it will be connected to the orange and white wire, and at the fourth position, it will be connected to the orange and red wires. So on our paperwork here, position 1 was a gray and white wire that's disconnected. Position 2 is a yellow and green wire that's disconnected. Position 3 is orange and white. And position 4 is an orange and red, and they're still connected. So this is the area that we're looking at on that thing. And so the gray wire and the yellow and green wire are disconnected, and they run to the 1 can play light, the 2 can play light, the 3 can play light, and the 4 can play light. So when you hit start, the 1 can play light comes on, When you hit it a second time, the 2 can play light comes on. When you hit it a third time, the 3 can play light comes on. And when you hit it the 4th time, the 4 can play light comes on. So basically, those 2 wires being disconnected just turn off a couple lights that are almost useless. But we're going to solder them back on anyway. But you know, I just wanted to check to make sure it wasn't something important. But we'll put them back where they go. And I'm pretty sure everything is good with all of that. And we can put the thing back in the bottom of the cabinet. So we have been working diligently on cleaning all the switches and all the relays and rebuilding the stepper units, and I figured I'd show you this front stepper, which is the left bonus unit, just because it has that extra coil on it that you don't see too often. So there are 2 coils. So in most stepper units, one of the coils steps it up. So we're at the home position, and so when that coil pulls in, you step up 1 position. And it can keep doing this, and on it goes, right? And so the other one, in some instances, it has a coil that pulls in and resets it all the way back to the beginning. And then on other steppers, it has a coil that pulls in and steps it back 1 step, right? So these little levers here are engaged in the gear, and so when this one pulls in, you go back 1 step. So you can go forward 1 step and back 1 step. But this one has a 3rd one, because if this one pulls in, look, nothing happens. But what it's doing is there's a little bar here that comes forward, and it holds this 1 gear up here so that it can't go down whenever this pulls in. So basically what it does is, if this is on, when this pulls in, instead of it going back 1, it goes all the way back to the beginning. So it's like a super stepper. They've made it do both things that steppers can do. Very interesting. But we got that all working how it should. We cleaned all the switches on the drop targets. We replaced all of the freaking light bulbs. We cleaned the Jones plugs. They just need to be plugged back in. We've got the board back in. I checked the fuses. 3 of them are the wrong one. So the bottom one's supposed to be a 10, and then the next 3 are supposed to be a 15, but they had replaced the 15s with 20s. So we got that right. Of course, we fixed our 2 wires on the little stepper unit. We screwed everything back in where it goes. I still need to mount the chimes back up, but we have to work on it a little bit, so I didn't do that yet. But we're to the point where we're going to work through the back box now. So I'll plug all this stuff back in, and then we'll go back to the back of the machine. Alright, so I'm working in the back box, and everything's looking good, but then I get up to the little match unit, which, you know, it looks just like this. I showed that earlier. Mounted up at the top. And it doesn't work right. And there's a little tiny pawl that pushes a little gear on it, you know, you can see it like right here, and that little pawl has a little spring on it, and that little tiny spring is missing. So this is the little armature. I'll show it to you after we put it back in, but there's supposed to be a little spring wrapped around that in a weird way. And it's one of those rare little springs that nobody even knows what you're talking about if it's missing. But it looks like that. So I'm going to rig one up using this spring here. So I found this spring in the back, and it's the same size. So I'm going to see if I can cut the end of it and bend it and get it to be just what we need. So we'll see. So here's my creation. Let me see if I can get it to do its thing. So basically, I'll show you how it goes in the machine, but I basically have just a little spring created pretty similar to the other ones, and it keeps that thing going back. So we'll put it back in the machine and see if it works. It might be too tight, I don't know. So this is the match unit, and there's my little armature with my little spring mounted in there. And so what happens is when you push, when the coil pulls in this plate, that little arm goes down underneath the next little piece of the gear and pushes the gear forward, which makes the stepper on each side move. So without that spring, none of that works. But hey, we made a spring. So we have cleaned everything except the score reels. They take the longest time, if you don't know. The score reels take forever because you have to take the reel off and get it looking pretty and all that and put it all back. And there's 20 of them, so it's going to take probably 5 hours to do all that, 4 or 5 hours. But we have cleaned every stepper unit. We've cleaned every relay. We've cleaned the match unit and fixed the spring. We've cleaned all of the Jones plugs. We've plugged in everything, right? So I have plugged in the game. Let's see if it'll do anything. Let's see where we are so far. Well, we've got lights on the playfield, but none on the back glass. Let's see if maybe we've got a bad, sometimes you have a bad connection on something. Boom, 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 boom. Oh. Could be too that just all of the lights on the, look, I'm getting more now. So I've still got some bad connections on my Jones plugs. But we got a couple of them on. Okay, so the ironically, that light right there, the 1 and the 2, those were the 2 wires that were cut in the bottom. We really needed those, people. Now we can tell if it's on. Let's put some credits on it. Oh, we're going backwards. Let's do this one. Something's on, right? Hope the transformer doesn't sound like that the whole time. But I think we've got a credit on it. Let's see if it'll start or anything. I don't think it's going to make it, people. Well, I believe we're at the point where so these 3 relays are likely trying to reset all the score reels, and they're not clean enough to know that they are in fact reset. Oh, that did it. Did you see what I did? So I pulled one end to make it go off 0, and then it counted it back around to 0. Kicked our ball out. We're on all zeros. It says ball in play 1. I'm just trying to see if it'll do anything for us. It does appear to be doing a few things. It's not scoring though. Still ball in play 1. It's not scoring. Let's see if we can start a. So we started a 2-player maybe. Let's see if it'll change players. Not scoring. All right. right, so it won't advance or anything. So we still got lots of issues, obviously, and we still need to do the playfield. But at least we've got some of the lights on. So we'll have to disassemble the playfield, clean it, put everything back on it. We'll have to clean all of the score reels, right? We've got to get all of the general illumination lights working in the back box, and then we've got to troubleshoot it. So that'll be for another video. But at least we worked through some of the stuff in the bottom today. Didn't get it where it's playing all the way, but at least we got it where it does appear to be kicking the ball out and bouncing it around the playfield a little bit. The pop bumpers aren't working. And the scoring's not working. But hey, it's starting to try to limp along. So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think about it so far. And tomorrow, it's getting late. Tomorrow when I get in, I'll clean all of those score reels, all 20 of them. And then we'll work on taking the playfield apart now that we've got at least the lights on the playfield working. And of course we'll film all of that. And then we'll save all of the troubleshooting for you too, so that you can see on video how we work through the schematics and figure out why it's not scoring, why some of the stuff on the playfield isn't working, and that'll give us a great video. So people outside are crazy as hell. Leave your comments below. Leave your comments below. Let us know what's going on. And I'm going to go outside and see what's going on. And we'll see you on the next video.